Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Purendra Prasad. I am professor in the Department of Sociology, University of Hyderabad. Today we will be talking about illness and sickness. This is the second module in the Sociology of Health course. As I said in the first module, health and disease, it's important to understand the distinction between illness and sickness. While psychologists emphasized on the individual and self, therefore illness became very important conceptual tool to explain the pain and suffering. Sociologists talked about sickness. Sickness actually is much broader concept which includes not only the biological and individual psychological emotional kind of feelings, but also the social, political and structural factors that impinge on the pain and suffering. Now, in the early 60s, when sociology discipline actually started explaining about health, illness, disease, there was actually a convergence between medicine and sociology. In the early 60s, medical scientists also realized that there are non-medical factors which are important for them in the hospital setting or institutionalized settings. Why and how communities actually are not complying with the medical prescription or medical regimen that they are actually advising. So in that sense, medical scientists also wanted sociologists and social scientists to intervene, to educate the communities, to explain to the communities the significance of the scientific medicine and its applications, etc. Therefore, there was a convergence between these two disciplines, medicine and sociology. So, medicine's expectation, biomedical knowledge expectation of sociology was that they can educate the people, make them comply with the drugs and dosages that are given, and they will be able to help them see the value of scientific interventions on bodies in order to get cured. Sociologists actually entered into the discussion with the biomedical professionals in terms of understanding the institutions, in terms of understanding the actors, the personnel working in the institutions, how social networks work, what's the relation between doctor and patient, is that actually some kind of a relationship that can be studied like any other social relationship? These were some of the questions that sociologists actually had. And therefore, what emerged in sociology at that point of time was sociology in medicine. So, while the broader subdiscipline is called medical sociology, the way sociologists in the 60s were trying to understand the institutional processes, this was actually called sociology in medicine. Essentially, they were trying to, understand institutions, the roles that doctors play, the role of the patient and the attenders of the patients, and how these interactions can effectively contribute to the treatment, to the alleviation of pain and suffering for the communities. Over a period of time, sociologists were only playing a kind of a supplementary role, trying to explain what is expected of them, and sociologists actually became more comfortable within the institutionalized settings to supplement and complement the medical knowledge systems. However, in the 80s and later on, there emerged another kind of a trend, what is called as sociology of medicine. Sociology of medicine was actually trying to look at not just the institutionalized mechanisms, but the way inequalities actually play important role, how caste, class, gender actually plays a very important role in terms of shaping the healthy or sick bodies. How does power actually play between the doctors and patients? So therefore, sociology of medicine was not only studying the relationship between medicine, health and society at large, but it was also critical about the medical system itself, particularly the biomedical knowledge that was governing the behavior of the doctors and patients and the institutions. So these are two different kind of trends, and sociology of medicine actually became the in thing, and therefore the subdiscipline's name also changed from medical sociology to sociology of health. If one looks at now the current journals that are available in health literature, you find lot of journals which talk about sociology of illness, sociology of health, sickness and healing, and so on and so forth. They do not use medical sociology as a nomenclature, because sociology is no more only assisting the doctors and understanding the institutional procedures, etc. But there is also a trajectory that we need to understand within sociology. It is largely the American academia or the American social science actually contributed to the early stages of medical sociology or sociology of health. So early stages, there was some kind of understanding about the way human beings actually interact and why people do not participate in certain modernization and developmental kind of behavior. So when you look at in the early stages, the debates on modernization, the debates on development, sociologists actually participated actively, particularly Talcott Parsons, who was actually an American sociologist, coined the term called sick role. What it means is that you need to understand why people actually do not participate or why people deviate. So it was in the tradition of studying deviance. So in an effort to study human march towards progress, what kind of behavior actually limits or restricts them to actually act contrarily, act not towards the progress. So these were some of the concerns. Talcott Parsons said that because the urbanization and modernization actually contributes to a lot of stress and strain on the modern individuals to actually live in the societies, there is a tendency for the human beings to escape from the regulated behavior. Industrial society is expected that there is the regulated behavior contributes to higher kind of a standards of living. But certain individuals working in the industrial settings, particularly the working class, were actually slowly trying to deviate from this regulated behavior, and therefore they were trying to actually hide under the garb of sickness. So the sickness provided legitimacy for these groups of people to avoid escape from their routine, from their normal kind of working behavior. And the doctors actually became very crucial according to Parsons. So Parsons actually believed that in order to actually impose discipline and regulation for the progress of the society, doctors play a very important role. Medical professionals control, regulate and ensure that they all actually contribute towards the higher quality of life and standard of living. So he only saw the medical doctors and medical profession as contributing to having a benevolent role. In that sense, sick role as a concept played a very important role in the early stages, and that's where we are talking about the deviance and how modernization actually contributed to, etc. But in the 80s and more particularly later part of the 80s, the social constructionists and the conflict theorists actually started questioning this benevolent role of doctors and medical profession. They were very critical, and therefore sociology of medicine emerged, and this particular subdiscipline or this particular approach actually talked about how human bodies and human behavior is actually shaped by the behavior, by the structures of the society. So in that sense, you can see social constructionism, you can see Marxist kind of a perspective of health, one could see postmodernist, post-structuralist perspectives of health. All of them actually branched out, questioning the early part of the Parsonian sociology or the sick role model of health. When we are talking about sociology of health in the 80s and 90s, I think we are talking about how the discourse on illness actually changed from the early stages of accepting the behavior as the given behavior to that of interpreting illness. Let me explain what I mean by this. There are three concepts here. One is illness behavior. Second one is there are acute and chronic illnesses, and third one is illness narratives. If you look at illness behavior, the common questions that arise, why is it that some people actually approach the doctor even for minor ailments? Why some people do not actually think that it's appropriate to consult doctor? What actually makes the people with illness to recognize that this is the appropriate time, and these are the kind of medical professionals that we need to approach. How is that kind of a decision made? If you look at, say for instance, you can see in terms of the aged, okay. In a family, we do think that children, when they fall ill, we immediately take them to a doctor, whereas aged person and dependent persons, actually when they fall sick, we tend to actually delay, and it takes its own kind of routine for us to actually take them to the doctor. So why is this kind of a difference? Children are actually taken as, on a priority basis, while aged and dependent population actually are not attended to immediately. Okay. Similarly, if you look at a kind of a working class laborers, when there is a back pain, when there is certain kind of pain that they undergo in terms of their body, they do think that till it obstructs their work, they continue. While if you look at the white collar employees, or for instance the kind of bureaucrats and lawyers and doctors, and this section of the people immediately think that it's important to go consult a doctor, take the opinion, and address that problem. So which means that in terms of occupational differentiation also, there is certain decision making process that happens, when to consult, when not to consult, whom to consult, etc. Similarly, in terms of gender, okay, women, even though they undergo a lot of pain and suffering, their first consultation actually would be in terms of the community kind of a healer, or the physician who is close to their communities, somebody who is nearby. Only when it is intense pain, women actually are taken to a doctor in a urban or in a metropolitan city. Okay, and that's because given our patriarchal society, we do think that women require a kind of person who need to accompany them, and therefore you need the accompanying person also to be free. What are we saying? So we are saying that illness actually is addressed, illness actually is looked at seriously based on your occupation, your age, your caste, your gender. All these factors play important role, and this is what sociologists actually were trying to elaborate in the 80s and 90s, that the way they were saying that it's not simply in terms of not complying or not consulting the doctor the moment they fall sick. There are social political reasons why they don't consult a doctor immediately, why certain other occupations actually immediately go to them. Similarly, if there is a kind of a menstrual kind of problems, or problems with recognizing puberty as actually a biological phenomena or a social phenomena, all these are mediated by the social kind of ideas. So in that sense, illness behavior is something that is directly linked to the immediate society and its value system. And when you look at these two things, acute illness and chronic illness, acute illness where people feel intense pain probably for a period of time, of course medically speaking they say that less than 3 months of time when you feel pain, okay, and which is something that you are trying medication but you are not able to redress them immediately. So people with pain who are able to express and there is possibility of cure is something that acute pain, and chronic pain is something that is you have intense pain and you have been actually trying to seek medical help, but you are told that the possibility of actually getting cured is very, very minimal. So, chronic illness is something that you have to live with it for your life. Okay? Both are intense kind of pain, but look at this acute pain and chronic pain by caste, by class, by gender, by ethnicity, by region. So, it is not something that people do not simply go to a hospital, okay, even if they have acute pain or whatever. It depends upon the availability, affordability, accessibility. There are a lot of social, economic and political factors that are responsible for why people do not consult, why they treat a particular kind of illness as something that is beyond their reach. Okay. So, it is beyond medical explanation. Similarly, when you look at the illness narratives, okay, what Arthur Kleinman says is that when a particular person who is going through suffering or pain articulates what one is going through, but it is actually significantly reinterpreted by their family members, by their community and friends, and that actually becomes a kind of a narrative. Okay? And these illness narratives actually are something that are a reflection of the societal acceptance. See, when somebody says that I am sick, similar experiences also will have to be confirmed, and therefore you say within the particular community they can articulate it more confidently. So, in that sense, sociology actually in the 80s and 90s were trying to understand the underlying reasons, in terms of the compliance or in terms of conformity to certain knowledge system that is available within medical domain. So, it is very important to understand these processes, okay? And of course, there are theoretical positions in terms of foundational, anti-foundational perspective, social constructionist perspective. Similarly, you have certain kind of structuralist understanding, and in terms of the Marxist understanding of interpreting these behaviors. Okay. So, these perspectives actually help us different sets of explanations, and that is where sociology of medicine actually became very significant in the 80s and 90s. Let me sum up this module. Illness and sickness are two interrelated concepts. They move beyond biomedical understanding of disease. Illness and sickness actually are the concepts which have been actually developed within sociology of health, the distinctions between psychology and that of sociology. And in this module, we looked at how in the early stages medical sociology was very comfortable within the institutional locations, trying to complement and provide a kind of a supplementary role to the medical professionals, which is called as sociology in medicine. But in the 80s and 90s, it moved actually beyond these kind of complementary roles to critically engage with the medicine, health and society, and also bring in the community point of view, the kind of different social groups and classes and castes and genders, their perceptions of defining illness, defining sickness, why people actually consult medical professionals, why people do not consult medical professionals at a point of time. These will have to be understood based on the social, economic and political factors. Thank you.